We have 8 Yu-Gi-Oh series, which means we have 8 protagonists, and each protagonist has a rival. But how good are these rival characters? Do they push out protagonists or feel like the perfect opposition to them? Do they embody the makings of a good rival? In this vid, I'm going to go through who are considered the good rivals and which rivals are sadly stinkers. For the sake of the vid, I'll only be using one rival character per series since a few series have multiple rivals. So for GX, I'll be using Chaz because he does serve as the main rival throughout the entire series, while Johan and Aster, or you might know them as Edo and Jesse, are seasonal rivals. Yes, you might be disappointed to hear that, but Chaz has been the rival throughout the entirety of the series, and to a degree unlike others, and no, Zane is not a rival. He's the top guy in Duel Academy, but not the rival. He serves a different purpose. If you played Gen 1 Pokemon, your rival is Oak's grandson, not Lance, the top trainer in the Elite Four. Chaz is more like Oak's grandson, and Zane is more like Lance. And with Zeal, we'll be using Kaito as the rival and not Shark. Kaito definitely feels more like the rival since he directly opposes Yuma as a numbers hunter who have similar goals but for their own interests. Also, yes, Sevens and Gold Rush are part of the list. You don't like Rush Era Yu-Gi-Oh? That's okay. Never seen Rush Era Yu-Gi-Oh? That's fine. But you don't get to just say they don't count because you don't want them to. They are Yu-Gi-Oh series regardless of your personal feelings, so they are going to be a part of the discussion concerning an entire franchise. With that out of the way, let's move on to discussing the rivals and if they are a good rival character or a stinker. Of course, this is my personal opinion on the rivals, and aside from me simply stating my opinion, I want to state my case for each one as well. First, we have Yugi's rival Seto Kaiba, arguably the coolest character in Yu-Gi-Oh history. In middle school, if you wanted to wear a long, cool jacket, it was either because you were a fan of the Matrix or freaking Seto Kaiba. There's no limit to how freaking cool this man is, but how is he as a rival? Well, I hate to say it, but as a rival, he was pretty terrible. Yes, it hurts my heart to say this considering Kaiba is one of my fave characters ever, but as a rival, he never matched up to Yugi. In fact, he always got smacked by Yugi. He was like a little brother who keeps getting beat up by their older brother and doesn't know when to quit. Yugi never really had to push himself to overcome Kaiba. Not saying Kaiba was never a challenge, but going back to Pokemon as an analogy, Gary was a good rival. He makes Ash need to get better to overcome him. They both have the same goals, have the same profession, but Ash can't obtain his goals without overcoming Gary. And Ash needs to get better because of Gary's efforts as his rival. But Kaiba's not an obstacle for Yugi, just more of an annoyance. Yugi has beaten Kaiba up, down, left, right, and center, and that's just in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters. Kaiba's taken L's from Yugi and Yu-Gi-Oh! Zero as well. Kaiba's always the underdog, and while admirable, he looks weak, and being a weak rival makes me feel bad for him more than I want to root for Yugi, who's essentially bullying the guy. Kaiba did have a perfect chance to beat Yugi in Duelist Kingdom. The setup was perfect. Crush Card destroyed Yugi's deck and Kaiba summoned Blue Eye's Ultimate Dragon. It would have been perfectly acceptable for him to get a clean W, but he got an asterisk win by giving Yugi an unfair ultimatum of win or potentially kill a dude. So Kaiba didn't win, but only because Yugi chose to lose. Not exactly the height of achievements there. That would be like dueling at your locals and your opponent with diabetes says, if you beat me, I won't take my insulin today, and it will be your fault if my health fails. You choose to prioritize their life over the game, and then they glow and cheer how they won. You would be like, okay. And you know no one witnessing the game will consider it a legit win. This is pretty much the same case. Now, some might say the situation with Kaiba on the ledge needed to happen for Yugi to have issues with Yami and his viciousness, which could have still happened through other ways. You didn't need this, especially if you know the crap Yami did in Zero, and I can also understand Kaiba doing anything to save his brother, but to think he could just waltz up to Pegasus after essentially losing to Yugi is insane. Why does he think he stands a chance against Pegasus if he couldn't beat Yugi without essentially forcing Yugi to give up? I can imagine him having the confidence to save his brother with a clean win, but this just seems foolish. As a character, Kaiba's amazing, but as a rival, he fails at being the Virgil to Yugi's Dante. Next is Chaz from GX. Do I even have to? He's essentially a joke character. Go back to the Pokemon reference again, he's essentially Team Rocket as a duelist. That doesn't mean I dislike Chaz. He has great moments and all, but as a rival, he's even worse than Kaiba because at least Kaiba would only lose to Yugi or final boss characters. Chaz just never got the respect he deserved, but at least we got the manga Chaz version. Check out my video about how amazing manga Chaz is in comparison, link in the description. But yeah, as a rival, he is a stinker, just there to be schooled by Judai, not meant to be a proper adversary. Moving on now to Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds and the King Jack Atlas. Like Kaiba, this man oozes cool and has a badass dragon. He is a top class duelist, and unlike the other rivals, Jack actually has a clean win over the protagonist Yusei. Granted, it was just in a flashback, but the theory established that from the start that he's strong. Granted, the series did do something questionable. You see, in their first full duel, it was revealed that Yusei could have beaten Jack if it was not for the intervention of the Crimson Dragon. Maybe it would have been better to show they would have tied, but knowing Jack would have lost despite him having 2 Signer Dragons and Yusei not having one in his deck doesn't look good for Jack. But that's not what makes Jack a stinker of a rival. The guy was treated pretty well in the beginning and even had a great character arc, finding out the meaning of what he represented as king from a woman he fell in love with and was willing to sacrifice everything for her, but then it happened. If you've seen any of my videos before, you know what I mean. The damn second part of 5Ds. Now Jack is a bum at a cafe despite the fact that he has a movie based off of him and merchandise, so he should clearly have some royalties, but he must have forgot about those the same way he forgot about Carly. You know, the woman he was willing to not defeat even if it meant the god of the underworld to be resurrected. But this is the second part of 5Ds, and unless your name is Crow, this was not your season. Though I will admit that Kiryu and Crash Town was peak stuff. But now, Cool Badass King was a bottom feeder who would take a crap ton of losses. His luster as Yusei's rivals was shattered into pieces. He just became a guy. You know, it was like when Kofi Kingston lost the title to Brock Lesnar. He went from being the guy to just some guy and never got that feeling of being back on top. Now, I will say something you probably would not expect. I would give props to Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5. Jack was always cool the way he carried himself like he was supposed to be after Carly made him discover who he should be. He was a king above all, but one that looked out for the people and wanted the best for the synchro dimension. I will admit his second loss to Yu-Gi-Oh! Where he got OTK'd was garbage, but overall they nailed what Jack should have been in part 2. But sadly, Jack is a stinker of a rival. He was good for a while, but he fell so far from grace. It is hard to consider him a good rival after taking loss after loss, and the best aspects of his character being stripped from him. Now we move on to Yu-Gi-Oh! Zeo and the rival numbers hunter Kaito. Like Yuma, Kaito was on a hunt for the numbers card, which of course led them to confront one another, and in their first encounter, Kaito showed he can easily wield number monsters and even use them as sacrifices for his boss Galaxy Eyes. Even with Astro by Yuma's side, they faced certain defeat if it was not for issues with Haruto, forcing Kaito to call off the game he was about to win. Yes, Kaito was going to cleanly beat Yuma, and now we established 2 things. Kaito is a badass rival, and now Yuma has an obstacle he must surpass. You don't need me to spell it out for you anymore. Yes, Kaito is the first on the board for a good rival. He's better than the protagonist and is his opposite. Yuma hunts numbers and frees the people that are afflicted by them, while Kaito removes their soul to steal the numbers. They have the same goal but opposing methods, and of course, Yuma can't let Kaito get away with doing things the way he is. Now we have foundations of a rivalry. Kaito even shows that he can match Astro when they duel against one another and even pushes Astro into a corner. But even with Yuma coming to Astro's aid, evolving Utopia, and for the first time ever going into Zeo form and using a Zeo weapon, it is not enough, and Kaito is able to turn Yuma and Astro's comeback into a tie. He wasn't even taken down by anime power-up moments, and from there, he became the one Yuma wanted to be in the upcoming tournament arc. Sure, Kaito lost to Tron, but he was the main villain of the arc, and an awesome one at that. It was here that Yuma can prove he can hang with Kaito or even surpass him by becoming a champion and beating Tron to become the champion. Now he was able to do something Kaito couldn't. From there, we move on to the formation of the Zeo trio with Yuma, Kaito, and Shark coming together, putting their differences aside to beat Faker in their amazing duel, but Yuma wanted to settle their score with Kaito once and for all, a duel against Kaito since he never faced them in the tournament. This was the final duel of the season, and Kaito, like the badass he is, beat Yuma clean. He never once in the entirety of Zeo has lost to Yuma or Astro. From there, he was one of the good guys in the trio, always holding his own and being an amazing character throughout. Why Arc 5 thought this guy losing on a 3v1 against Yuri was a good idea is beyond me. He was so amazing, he even saved Yuma from Misael, the strongest Barian knight, and would even hold a rivalry with him until their final duel on the moon, and Kai fought literally to the bitter end. He knew getting the Numeron Dragon was necessary for Yuma and Nash to overcome Down 1000, so he fought with his life on the line and won the duel against the strongest knight at the cost of his own life. No, he wasn't carded or sent to the shadow. Kaio literally died. He kept dueling knowing his life support on the moon would not last, but like the Chad he is, he kept going until death and earned the respect of Misael, who turned against Down 1000. Kaio would be resurrected with the Numeron code at the end, but it's not like he knew that was gonna happen when he made the sacrifice. He literally gave up his future and was going to leave his brother behind if it meant he can save the universe from Down 1000. Kaio was a hell of a rival and a character. The writers clearly learned from past mistakes like Chaz and Jack. Next, we move on to everyone's favorite Yu-Gi-Oh series, Arc 5. We are talking about Reiji Akiba, the duelist who serves as the rival to Yuya. One is the pioneer of pendulum monsters and the other is the one who made it available for all. Reiji serves as the opposite of Yuya and someone who can oppose him. He is also someone who makes Yuya need to get better as the series goes on. Despite all the faults of Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5, one thing they did get right was a damn good rival character in Reiji. A strong, competent character with defined goals and can be the parallel of the series protagonist the way Kaio was to Yuma. Reiji didn't duel a lot, but he didn't need to. We all knew he was a badass and anyone opposing him was gonna get wrecked. We saw his first duel with Yuya and he effortlessly can use all extra deck mechanics and was even able to create pendulum monsters. This meant Yuya was not the only one who can use these special monsters, and the man he faced not only can use them, but mastered all summons he couldn't even touch at that point. Reiji even seemingly could beat Yuya in the first duel, but called it off when he had to follow up on information on Kurosaki. Reiji and Yuya would duel again with a dispute about the Lancer's formation and rescuing Yuzu as the focal point. Yuya had grown as a duelist and hit Reiji with everything. Pendulum Summon, Fusion Summon, XC Summon, and he even evolved the Pendulum Summon to other mechanics and summoned Odd Eye's Rebellion Dragon, which was no joke in the anime. And what did Reiji do? He clapped Yuya and shut down every bit of improvement he had made to that point and would reign as the leader of the Lancers with that group, including Yuya following in his lead. Reiji felt like a powerful rival. He had presence, he had personality, he was competent, he didn't take random L's. He serves as the perfect opposition to Yuya, and ever since their first duel, you knew the only way this series could end was a final duel between them, where only then Yuya would surpass Reiji. Throughout the series, Yuya had to keep on adding to his dueling arsenal and add new summoning mechanics just to match everything Reiji was able to do easily in their first encounter. Reiji, without a doubt, goes on the list of good rival characters. Okay, now we're moving on to Yu-Gi-Oh! Frames and the main rival, Revolver. Okay, it's not a secret that I have my issues with Reigns, but that doesn't play a part in this discussion. I'm judging a specific character and I give props where props are deserved. Like with our last entry, I think Reiji was a great part of a pretty bad series. Heck, even a movie I dislike, I'll give credit if the score, cinematography, or other aspects are good. So just saying when something is good, I will give credit where credit is due. But that won't be the case with this because Revolver sucks as a rival. Let's talk about it. It felt like Yu-Gi-Oh! Was going in a good direction rival-wise after Kaio and Reiji stand out as absolute units in their series, but then the concept of a rival regressed. Revolver is a throwback to Kaiba. Cool design, has an awesome dragon, and like Kaiba, feels like they're lacking as someone who can oppose the protagonist of the series. Not even 10 episodes in, Revolver took a beating from Playmaker. Not exactly the way to establish not just your rival, but your final boss of the whole season. The guy didn't even just lose, it was worse than that. You see, he challenged Playmaker to a speed duel that ended in a draw, and he was able to get Playmaker to face him in a master duel, which is all according to his calculations. Because Revolver dug into his side deck and used a card that completely countered Playmaker, and he still lost. Seriously, the guy had full advantage and still took the L. That doesn't look good as the rival and it kills the momentum of the whole organization. Listen, if Revolver was just a general of sorts in the Knights of Hanoi and took a loss, the group would still have like a threat if there were others like him or surpass them. But he was the pinnacle of the group. So when we see the gang take on the Knights of Hanoi, it's like, who cares? We just saw your top guy get taken down. Why should I be invested in Playmaker versus any of these guys when he beat their top guy? It would be like if the Avengers beat Thanos, then his children fly down and say, you have to fight us now. The Avengers would be like, we just beat your strongest guy and your whole force. Now you guys want to fight us? Sure. After Revolver took his loss to Playmaker, I was thinking, well, I guess the final duel will be against Dr. Kogami. Maybe even a 3v1 scenario with Playmaker, Blue Angel, and Go taking him on similarly to Yuma, Shark, and Kaito versus Faker, or Yusei, Jack, and Crow versus Goodwin. But nah, the guy we saw lose early in the series is the final boss, so Playmaker just has to beat the guy he already beat. Not saying that can't work, but my investment is not as high as, let's just say, Yugioh versus Reiji 2, where I know Yugioh is fighting against a better opponent, or Yusei versus Jack 2, where they feel like they're on an even level. Of course, Revolver lost, which was expected and okay, but the writers did not treat this guy with respect. Let's look at his final duel of Season 2. He was supposed to beat Lightning, but due to some cheating, Lightning got the win. Which would make you think, well, if they bothered to give Lightning the win, clearly there are more plans to be done with him. But no, he gets absorbed by Bowman afterwards, so the question is, why not just give Revolver the win? Lightning as a character was unneeded anymore, so why not have Revolver just win, and this prompts Bowman to absorb Lightning and Revolver can suffer damage from his avatar, which leaves him no choice but to let Playmaker handle the final duel. That makes miles more sense than what they did. Then in his last duel of the series, he lost to Soul Burner, a duel we didn't need. But hey, gotta have Soul Burner overcome Revolver for reasons. I mean, Playmaker didn't have a duel all season until the final duel. Can he have been the final duel against Revolver? Listen, Revolver is cool. He has a good deck, and I love that he didn't just become a good guy, but stuck to his own devices and would work with Playmaker if their goals were in line. I like that he didn't just have a 180 in personality, but the praise ends there. I apologize if you like Revolver as a duelist or a character, but can you seriously say that he was good as a rival to the protagonist? There's a lot of good that could have been done with a character like Revolver, and he has all the makings of what could have been a great villain or rival, but Reigns got a Reigns, I guess. We are now finally in the Rush era of Yu-Gi-Oh, and we are now going to judge Yuga's rival, Luke. And yes, Luke is the main rival character. A rival doesn't need to start as a villain and can be a teammate as well. For example, Shu is still Volt's rival in Beyblade Burst, even if they are on the same team working together. Or in Haikyuu, Hinata and Kageyama are still rivals despite being teammates, and they push each other to become naturally better. With that explanation behind us, now to answer the question, Luke, is he a good rival or a stinker? If you watch Yu-Gi-Oh! 7, then the answer is clear as day. Luke freaking rules as a rival. Despite being on the more comedic side of characters like Chaz or Saratari, he was not treated as a joke. Right out the gates in episode 2, we established that Luke was stronger than the MC of the series and a clean win. That's right, no asterisk needed. Luke was always presented as an incredibly powerful and knowledgeable duelist that the team can rely on. For example, when Yuga could not continue his duel against Yuga Goha, Luke took over Yuga's deck. Despite never using the deck before, he was able to effortlessly utilize Yuga's maximum, ace fusion, and even understood that Yuga had a plan to beat Yuga Goha when he utilized Wording Fairy to absolutely crush Yuga Goha's large quantity graveyard strategy, and it was an amazing duel to watch. For people who say there are no combos in Rush Duel, check out that episode, it was insane. Luke also pushed Yuga to even want the title of King of Games, something Yuga never even cared about. He was all about just creating new adventures and making sure children had fun with duel monsters. This culminated in the finals in the only tournament of the series, where Yuga versus Luke was the only way to settle their team battle after Gakuto was able to tie against Nail, which was an incredible feat on its own, and after the best girl in the series got her team a win by beating Roa. So much was on the line in this duel, and viewers had one question: who's gonna win? And that alone is exciting. This is the finals of a tournament of a Yu-Gi-Oh! Series, and the viewers did not know who would win. Most people would think, well, the main character will win, but the series did two amazing things to broaden our suspension of disbelief. First, Yuga was presented as a more relatable duelist who can actually lose. He's not an overpowered MC, so we know it's possible for him to take a loss. Secondly, Luke was presented as a powerful rival that's never taken a loss. Will Luke continue to be the strongest duelist, or is this when Yuga beats his rival on the biggest stage possible with the title of King of Games on the line? Being on the edge of your seat, not knowing what will happen is great. It makes you more invested. But in this tournament finals, guess what? Luke wins and actually gets the title of King of Games. This guy is unstoppable in the best possible way. Luke does lose a single duel, and that is in the final episode against Yuga, and it was a big deal. That duel had huge stakes on the line and was the perfect time for Yuga to overcome Luke. Even Yuga was ecstatic that he finally beat Luke. It was a bittersweet moment considering him winning allowed him to finish a dangerous duel where he was putting himself on the line, and losing meant the end of Duel Monsters. It was the perfect way to end the series rivalry, seeing Yuga finally beat Luke, and it felt huge because of the way the series treated Luke. If he was just treated like Revolver or Jack, this would not have felt as big. Overall, Luke lives up to being a proper rival that not only pushes our protagonist, can stand against the protagonist, and is respected by the writers of the series. Luke joins Kaio and Reiji in the team of great rivals. Lastly, we move on to Yugioh. I wasn't sure if I was going to include him considering at this time the series Go Rush is not done, but heck, it's safe to add him. Now, where does he stand? With Kaiba, Chaz, Jack, and Revolver, or in the winner's booth with Kaio, Reiji, and Luke? Well, the Master of the Dark Galaxy deck is sitting high in the position of great rival. What more can you ask from him? He is a strong duelist, we understand his convictions, he is cool, and also has that Rush era quirkiness at times. But wait, some of you are saying, I got on Revolver's case for losing early to the protagonist, so why am I giving a pass to Yugioh, who lost about 12 episodes into Yugioh? Well, that is because he lost on purpose to Yugioh. It was even acknowledged that Yugioh could have just attacked Yugioh and won, which made Yugioh question Yugioh's objective, and this was not like Reiji, who could have beaten Yugioh in their first encounter, but we didn't know why or how. It was clear as day. Even watching, I wondered, why didn't he just beat Yugioh? And this must have been a mistake on the writer's part. But no, it was intentional and part of the story, which is different than Revolver, who lost giving it his all against Playmaker. This is why Yugioh vs Yugioh Part 2 in the Battleship duel was such an amazing match, because Yugioh was facing an opponent he knows can beat him. Unlike Revolver vs Playmaker 4, where Revolver is dueling as the underdog to the protagonist who bested him. But what much can I say about the guy? He's presented very well. He has only ever taken 2 losses, one of which he took on purpose, and doesn't feel inferior to the protagonist in any way, or heck, any duelist in the series. You can tell he's the kind of duelist that won't lose to just any old character, and I love the inclusion of his ace being a part of major duels, such as being part of the fusion with Phaser's ace, or along with Phaser's ace being a part of the fusion Yuhi can make. And can't forget, in the duel against Kaio, Requiem fused with Transformer. This guy is a menace in duels he's not even a part of. The series is not over, but Yugioh is on the good end of rivals, and there isn't much that can bring down his credibility as a rival. So there you have it, straight down the middle, 4 great rivals and 4 not so great rivals. Now this is strictly my opinion, but I formulate my opinions on a criteria of what I feel makes a good rival. I don't simply choose who's my favorite character and say they are the best, otherwise Kaiba would have been on the great rivals list. Same with my best Yu-Gi-Oh girl vid. I saw people comment, Taya or Aki is my fave, so they are the best. Cool, but because they're your fave doesn't mean they should be considered the best. So just know, I try to look past my personal opinions of characters and the series to make these judgments. But yeah, let me know what you think, and hopefully in the most respectful way possible, not just to me, but to each other in the comments. Which rivals do you like? Which do you think are great, or anything else like that? After all, this is just my opinion, and hopefully this spurs on fun discussion and not hate. And let me know what other discussion videos I should be making next time. That's all I got for you guys today. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and peace out.